cast mounts with snares when I was trapping farms, and I was having to walk half miles or a mile back to get these beaver, and I didn't want to carry 330s or CDRs all the way back there. So snares are light easy. I can take a dozen of them and just start going up the bank. But of course, I was doing this when it was flooded, so the water was on top of these banks, so you really don't have slides anymore. But what you still did have was kind of the top of the slides where it gets really wide. At the top of the slides, I'd have these nice little coves, and I can, if the water wasn't too deep off this cove, I can come back and set a snare in here, because I wanted, while I'm doing these snares on these cast mounts, I want 18 to 24 inches from where my snare is to this bank, because I want to make sure he's got to swim, actually get up close to it. Because if you have your cast mount right here and your snare right here, he's just got, he might come up to that cast mount, but if I can get him back here, I got a better chance of him getting caught. Or if he gets up on the bank, when he comes into the bank, he's going to be swimming by the time he hits the snare. But then I'm running these loops. I said I'm going to run about a 10-inch loop, and I don't like it quite as low in the water as what some people do. I only want maybe about a third of this under the water, because if I can keep beaver, they don't have the greatest eyesight, but still, I don't like having the lock and everything right in their face. So this is probably a good, probably about 5-6 inches out of the water. So that loop's a little less than half underwater. But and then and I've got, I'm trying to keep, I'm trying to get them swimming, so they're still a good, probably another 5 or 6 inches of water under this snare. And then, so I'm running, and my casting mount, I'm always kind of want, even having this distance, I still want to have my caster mount, like, if this is my caster mount, I still want that caster a good about foot or two, preferably about 2 feet back, because I want him coming up to that. I don't want him just being able to play right here, which I'll show you in a second. But with the snares, it don't matter so much. But when I go to my when I go into a foothold, yeah, this is why I kind of like steep banks. So, I want this beaver when I'm, let's get my foothold back here. Kind of show you something on these TS85s real quick too while I'm getting this thing out. It's got my 20-foot drowning cable on here. It's seen a few beaver. But on these TS85s, you gotta watch, because where it has this little sheath over the rod, that holds water and traps moisture. So if you're adjusting your if your pan tension gets out of whack, and you've had these traps for a few years, that regular bolt, when you start trying to adjust it, it'll end up snapping. So I went and put stainless in these, so I can play with my tension. I haven't adjusted this one back, but ow, come on. Huh? Yeah. Yeah, these ones aren't too bad because they're only 2 coil, but still, we're gonna get you up here when they do. But the worst, actually, the ones that hurt the worst are the small traps, because they always get you right on here on the knuckles. Especially the 1.5 are really bad about it. But the reason why I like the really steep bank on my foothold traps is, like I said, when I started beaver trapping, I started trapping big steep side creeks, so I couldn't get out here to set traps. I was having to stand up here trying to make my set. So what I found was, everyone talks about if you set really close to the bank, that is a front foot location for your trap. Well, that's fine. if you're on a shallow bank where it kind of gets over there, that's fine. But when you get these steep banks and you get a good bit of water under here and you're having your caster up here, for that beaver to get up here, he's gonna have to drop his feet right here close to the bank, right over top of the trap, so he can launch up and get there. He's got to put his front feet. He's got to put his front feet up here, and so I'm not having to worry about those. And the deeper I can keep this trap, I don't have to worry about the belly fire. I have done it. If like I said, I got a lot of water here to work with, but if the creek's dropping and I don't have a lot of water, I'm going to come in. I'm going to dig out this trap bed so I can have. So I'm not going to have to worry about belly fire. If for some reason the beaver did get up here and come out and exit the shed, going back out here, I didn't want that belly fire, because sometimes when they come out, they're kind of determined they're done, they're going, they're going to hit that pretty hard, and that will fire the trap. So I still like to keep a good bit of water on these foothold traps. But something we can't do a whole lot of in Ohio is our 330s at these caster mount sheds. You can do it when you get in the right situation, but the water here, okay, like about right here is where I wanted to have my 330. Still the same thing. I'm wanting it about 2 foot back from the bank here, but I said right here, that trap's not legal. Well, what I've kind of started doing, if this is kind of flat here, but if I get a really steep bank and I can't, and if I'm having to dance from up here, I found that you can take this trap and you just kind of lean it back, so, and then you'll use something over top of this trap to make them dive under and get them to go under the trap here. It works really well when you got a really steep bank that's about like that.
You're basically saying keep it perpendicular to the bank.
Yeah, it's kind of like a snare. Like if you're going to run a snare, same thing. You always want to have that snare kind of at that 90 degree to the bank. You don't want it kind of drooping down, because that cuts your opening. Like that, if you got this bank here and you got that trap right here, that's not a very big opening. Another little fun set. Luckily, I found this tree kind of snapped off, so probably one of my favorite sets to do with especially if I'm trapping out of my boat, my kayak. If I can find a tree like this and I've got a bank, this is a very deadly set. Again, of course, this one trap's not underwater, but take some caster and smear it a couple feet up here so you can get that scent to distribute. And the beaver coming up the creek, if he smells it, he's got to circle around this tree, and eventually you're going to get him caught. But I said, I want to try to find the ones that are really tight to the bank. I mean, you can put another trap out here if you want to, or you can use the snares. Kind of same philosophy. I still want that snare just over half out of the water. Like I said, trapping out of the boat, I do a lot of these, especially, or if I just find this tree out in the middle of the, I've done this a lot, where you get a tree that's, you got a fallen tree that's way out into the water, which basically trapping on public ground, so no one's gonna mess with you out there too much. Even if you have a beaver caught, he don't make a lot of noise until you get right up onto him. But I'll find these trees, and the same thing, I'll smear caster up here, and then any way I can get that snare stabilized. One thing I really like about, you can either make these or buy these. These are like the double hairpin snare supports. They're just a nail with some number 9 wire welded to it. You can go up to these trees, you just nail that right to the tree real quick, real fast, And I said, keep, if the beaver does knock this out of the tree, or you lose them out of the boat, you lose a lot of stuff out of the boat. I've lost pliers. Luckily, I haven't lost any traps yet, but lost a couple of these little things. But just get in there, get it tight. This, I don't always leave usually I don't leave my wire this long. This one's hasn't seen the beaver line yet, but it's seen the coyote line a little bit. But because you don't need a whole lot of wire, you just want enough to get it out away from the tree. So if I have this set here, this wire's gonna be probably about right here off this tree. And again, I have this snare. Talked about running trees on the snares here. You got a green tree, make sure your anchor below the water on the tree. Do not anchor it up here if it's a green tree, or you might lose your beaver. Now, kind of this trap I've got here, I built this trap, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's seen a few beaver, but it works. The best places I found for these traps, if you can find culverts that go under the road, a lot of times this is about the perfect size to fit in that culvert, because a lot of times they're metal culverts, so you can't really stabilize a 330 in them. So you just so it's a colony trap. So if you get the first beaver in here, these doors will open enough to let a beaver in. But I found I've had a little bit better luck on this trap installing a trigger for the door. It's kind of like a Comstock trap, and I'm not going to completely shed it, but it's just got some rod here. And this is kind of the very prototype trap. I've got a couple more I'm gonna build. I just haven't got around to doing it yet, but they're gonna have frames because like I said, a couple beaver, this thing's kind of been beat out of shape and I gotta adjust it. But having that trigger, nothing like having stuff hitting them in the having to work to get out of the so this door closed. Sometimes they get a little bit of refusal there, but given that opening all the way, I have better luck with this trap. I have had issues with and the reason why this trap is why I've got the cable on this trap. Beaver, well, you know this. If you put this in a beaver run, they're gonna throw it out of the run. The first time I ever caught a beaver in this trap, I got the first beaver. It was under ice. I was under ice trapping. Well, I got my beaver. I was breaking the ice trying to find my trap. Couldn't find my trap. Kept putting my pole down to find my trap. Well, then eventually about 5 or 6 feet later, I found my trap. The next beaver just throw it completely out of that run. So always wire these things off. So just in case Mr. Beaver decided he didn't like that thing in the run anymore. Then stabilizing the 330s, really you can use just about anything. These are some little quick stands I made. They're kind of basically the copies of the V stands. The reason why I like these a little bit more is you can put anything from a 110 up to a 330 on these stands. And it don't really matter because a lot of people complain about the stands that the normal stands you buy. If you run these Belial 330s, a lot of times you got to do some bending to get these traps on there just right. And with these V stands, so it makes things it works a whole lot easier on these. So again, and you don't have, they don't have to, and that's pretty solid there. Another thing I like to do, like I said, if you're gonna trap any places that have flood, you got a lot of water level issues or flooding, or you got a lot of deep water, I always recommend on these stands. This one doesn't have it. I'm gonna add another crossbar here. Always wire your stands off. When I cable off my trap, I always run this wire into these crossbars. So if the water's high, I can just yank on that cable. I can get my stand back with the trap. It might bend these legs up pretty bad, but I still got it. I can rebend it again. But I've lost a couple before I figured out how to do that. But like I said, well, like I said, talked about drowning wires on these foothold traps. I've started to do, instead of using the little 24-inch stakes on the back end of the traps, I started using, I've got a bunch of old 4 and 5 foot long beaver slapping over there. But I thought, yeah, that taking my snare kill poles and using those for my deep end, because trying to dance on a 24-inch stake when you're this deep is it's kind of hard. And like I said, I've lost several T-bars trying to stomp that in because, well, get stomped on it, it falls off, and you can't find it again without a magnet. And so I started using that those long kill bars. And if you're going to use those, I would highly recommend at the end of your drowner putting a stop about right there, because if you're gonna, because with that tall rebar, when it's sticking out, he can wrap that trap around that bar, and if you get it wrapped around there, and he can pull straight up in that bottom shaft, well, now you're gonna have that beaver. He's gonna be up here, and sometimes and then he can, if you got a steep bank, well, if he can get you over top of your stake up here, he can get out there with your stake. And luckily I had one beaver that did it to me on a sliding rod, and luckily he wasn't smart enough to figure out he was free, so he was just sitting on the bank. But when I got there, he took off. I had like, so I had to go chase him. Luckily my stake was still attached to that rebar, so I got jabbed that stake back into the ground, and then ran and got my gun, because I wasn't figuring on having to do any dispatching of everything was set to drown or 330s. But that was a little bit of a rodeo. But trying to think, I don't really have a good spot to show it, but we talked about, if you're gonna do a lot of dam break sets for beaver, something I've started doing is I do either the itty bitty baby breaks in the dam, so where you just have a little bit of water trickling out over the dam, because when they have the little itty beaver breaks, they'll just put a little bit of mud on top of that dam and call it good. You can put your foothold trap right in front of that set, pretty easy, you don't have to worry about it too much. If you make a bigger break, well, that beaver's gonna bring a lot more mud, a lot more sticks, and he's just gonna bulldoze, take that stuff, and he's just gonna bulldoze your trap right into the dam, fire off trap, and you're not gonna catch a beaver. So if I'm gonna go to a bigger break, I'm gonna make a break at least this wide here, and I'm gonna make that thing as deep as I can, probably at least, like, if I can get that much without doing a whole lot of work. But I want that water just rushing. So if that beaver comes up to that break, the only way he can work on that break is to get on the sides the dam and on top of the dam. So what I'll do is I'll come up once I get my break made. I'm going to set my trap basically on top of the dam, just get a little bit of water over top of those traps, and I'll set 2 traps, 1 on each side. So no matter which side he decides to work that dam break, I'll have a trap for him, or hopefully catch the double on beaver. But I've done a lot of caster mount sets on the beaver dams, kind of basically the same principle, except for I'm using I'm gonna front foot those beaver because they don't have you don't have a whole lot of water to work with, and I'm gonna use breasting sticks on those. I think everyone's kind of seen those. You just take a sharp stick and you're just basically gonna put that out. And so if your trap is here and here's the water side, you have these breasting sticks up here, try to get that beaver to drop his foot. I kind of forgot to do this the other day. I carry this a lot for my traps because these TS85 CDRs, if you're using them for a long part of the season, they start to get you get sand and everything on here, and these rivets where they're so tight can start to slow the trap down. So I'll take this silicone spray, and I'll every so often I'll kind of give these traps a good spraying to help get some lubrication, because WD-40 don't last that long on a trap. And I started using these self-locking setters, and where this is so tight, I'll have to come back and spray on that every so often to keep this lock spring from moving freely, because it will. Where they got a lock nut on that thing, and it kind of binds up, and it's kind of harder to. There's not a whole lot of room to adjust without loosening your nut on that thing. Let's see. Okay. You guys have any questions? And another thing on talked about going back to the snares for beaver. If this was just a slide for beaver, then I have a couple of places. There's 3 places to snare on a beaver slide. You can snare him down here. You can snare him at the middle of the bank, or you can snare him at the top of the bank. Middle of the bank is pretty easy. You get a spot halfway in the middle and set your snare there. Since we're in Ohio, you're only going to do this on private ground. I only like my loop about 8 inches on this knot, because I'm trying to catch that beaver by the neck. And the middle slide, this is about 4 inches. I'm going to come down about here to about 3. And like I said, I'm wanting the snare, again, about 90 degrees to the bank or perpendicular to it. Now, at the bottom of the slide or the top of the slide, I don't want the snare within basically 18 inches from either where the ground is or where the top of the bank. Down here, why you want that is you don't know if that beaver is swimming up to the set or if he's coming down this way. And when he's in that transition area, he's doing different things. So if you come back here, you know he's swimming. If you're coming right here, you don't know if he's sliding down through that way or if he's swimming or walking. Now up here at the top of the bank, I've kind of ran into this here last year when I ignored my rule. When you move this, when the beaver is again, I'm trapping steep banks. That beaver, he's crawling to get up that steep bank, and if you have the snare too low to the ground on this break, he'll he'll get caught by the foot. And if you have most of my snares have a breakaway device, so if I get him caught by the foot, I catch him. But like I said, that's it's kind of hard on the beaver that way. But if you have a deer stop on that snare, you're just gonna have a knockdown snare, and you're kind of wondering what happened there. So when I started catching those beaver by the leg with my snares, like, okay, I kind of broke my rule. So if you come back out here where it flattens out again, you got that beaver walking normally again. So again, you can kind of go back to your normal 3-4 inches off the ground and have the beaver caught that way. Again, like I said, I'm wanting a smaller loop on them beaver because I want net catch. But and I'll run all my snares are gonna be swivel snares. I've got a snare in here. Beaver can twist out of a snare, especially these. I'm using 1/16 cable on my snares, and if you get this, if you get a beaver, or sometimes you get an otter or a raccoon in the snare, and he wraps up, he'll break the snare. So I always try to keep these snares as short as I can, and run these to a cable. I just use trap swivels a lot of times on my snares. I got some snares for sale up there. I have barrel swivels, a little bit heavier duty and lower profile. But that's pretty much all I have for beaver. I mean, I can go over some other stuff, but more basically just kind of staying the same principles, and then just kind of adjusting to whatever your location is. These are just tomato stakes. Try to find oak or hickory or locust. The locust seems to last forever. Hickory and oak are pretty good too, but I'll even run snares that are attached to these, and you get these in the ground, they don't move again. You have to dig them back out. But so that's pretty much it. I'll put this in here.